You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Bitcoin, Ether, Solana, Doge, and more. Cryptocurrencies and digital assets are taking the financial world by storm. This exploding market provides everything a savvy trader needs: volatility, volume, and liquidity, provided you know how to find it. That's where we come in. Welcome to the Crypto Rundown. Each week, we'll break down the latest trading activity, trends, and developments throughout the world's leading crypto derivatives markets. If it's moving the crypto markets, then you'll find it on the Crypto Rundown. The Crypto Rundown is brought to you by Amber Data. If you're entering the digital asset class, you'll need access to granular on-chain and market data from multiple venues to power research, trading, risk management, and compliance. Amber Data delivers comprehensive data and insights into blockchain networks, crypto markets, and decentralized finance, empowering financial institutions to apply traditional finance methods to digital assets. Amber Data eliminates the infrastructure setup, integration challenges, and maintenance headaches to access digital asset data, reducing cost and time to market to enter the digital asset class. Learn more and download their digital asset data guide at www.amberdata.io. Now it's time to dive into the exploding world of crypto derivatives. It's time for the Crypto Rundown.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back here on the network, back for the Crypto Rundown, the program here on the Options Insider Radio Network, where we explore a little bit farther afield than our traditional stomping grounds of your Apples and your VIX and your Tesla and your SPY options, all that fun stuff. See what's going on over there in them there crypto hills. Take a look at all things Bitcoin and ETH, options, the volatility, the skew, the OI, the big developments, the swings, all sorts of fun, and a whole bunch more. Maybe get a little bit of BITO in there and some time at the end, a little bit of Solana and all the rest. And, of course, answer some of your questions. It's a fun time here on the old Crypto Rundown. My name, of course, is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as from the ever-compelling, at least we tend to think so, Options Insider Radio Network. Of course, remind me, if you like what you hear, do keep rating and reviewing on your platform of choice. Really does help new people continue to discover the content out there. The show is a newcomer to our network, but it's been running over 4 years now, so it's quite a track record. But to me, it's still the new edition. And new people discovering it all the time. We love to see that. So if you want to help that process along, throw a review wherever you get this show. It could be on any platform under the sun, or of course, could be where you get our mobile app. And of course, if you want more content in your lives, and who can blame you, theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go. Great pro Q&As, including a lot of great guests from the world of crypto there answering your questions, as well as options oddities, where if you can't find something to trade listening to that show, you are doing it wrong, as well as live access to this, every other show we do here on the network, as well as great giveaways, exclusive podcasts, all sorts of fun. Theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to begin your journey to the dark side as we begin our journey right on into the Bitcoin breakdown.
It's time to explore the latest trending activity, trends, and developments across the world's leading crypto market. It's time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Bitcoin Breakdown, the portion of the show where we do just that. We break down all the action in the world's leading digital asset. Yeah, we're talking about the big dog, which is Bitcoin. Remember, if you want to see more, want to hear more, about what we have cooking over here, where we're getting all this great data in terms of the vol, the OI, the unusual activity, all this crazy stuff we're talking about here on the old crypto rundown. Only one place to go, amberdata.io, amberdata.io, the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires. Tell them we sent you. They'll be super excited to talk to you over there. And if you did that, you would see a lot of action out there in the world of Bitcoin. Let's start on the underlying front before we get into some of the vol fun. And this is a level people have been looking at for a while, a very psychologically important level, 30K. And we were joking about it here on the show. 30K, it seems kind of optimistic when we were hanging out sub 20,000 not too long ago. Did we hit it this week? The answer was yes. Blew through it last Friday. 30,975 was the high. So not quite 31, but man, did we kiss it. In terms of lows, we got as low as about pretty much our last show, 28,518. That's where we were at the end of our last show. And in terms of where we are right now, 29,500, 556 to be precise. So net on the week, we're still up about 1,038 handles from where we were at the end of our show last week. In terms of action, what's going on from a vol perspective out there? The vol on our last show, about a 57. And it seems like the effervescence, the euphoria of breaking through the 30,000 strike and then coming back down the other way seems to have sapped some of the vol as a result. We're back below a 54 now, 53.75 to be precise. Let's get on out to the Skew. And, we were thinking about it coming into show today. We look at the Skew all the time. We're always quoting you pretty much the front month Skew. So the 30-day Skew out there. But we all know there's more to options and derivatives, and there's more to crypto than just the front month. So maybe take an expanded look today, go a little bit farther out as well. And that's where the Skew gets a little bit more interesting. The vol, not a huge evolution on the vol. So if we start seeing more evolution on the term structure from a vol perspective, maybe we'll rope vol into this conversation as well. But right now, Skew is kind of where things are interesting. Traditionally longer term, Bitcoin, ETH derivatives have always been skewed to the upside. Last year, notwithstanding, last year was a pretty aggressive down year. We saw the puts leading the dance. Now as we're coming back into the start of the show, let's go 30-day first. And that skew is still positive, if a little bit less than it was this time last week. Last week, we were about 2.25 positive. That means 2.25 points premium to the 25 delta approximately calls versus the 25 delta puts. Again, if everything I'm saying to you sounds like Greek, then head on over to the rest of our network. Check out Options Bootcamp and Options Playbook Radio. Those shows will serve you well in terms of getting you up to speed to understanding all these terms we're throwing around here like candy on the crypto rundown. We go a little bit farther out. Let's go about 6 months. Let's go 180 days, see how that term structure evolves, if it does from a skew perspective. And the answer is, yeah, it's a little bit more bullish, a little bit more positive. There's about a 4-point premium to the calls as you go farther out. So intriguing. I kind of expected that, given the traditional nature, the traditional way that Bitcoin options trade. That longer-term bias, again, last year notwithstanding, tends to be positive, and that is the case, a little bit more bullish, but nothing ridiculous. I'm not talking the 25-point premium or anything like that. It's just 4 points, but still, the call is leading the dance. What does that mean to you out there? Well, if you're out there, a lot of people like to use Bitcoin options for a covered call vehicle, a way to generate a little bit more income against your spot holdings in Bitcoin. And for that scenario, a premium to the calls is what you want. You want extra juice in those calls, so they're a little bit juicier when you come to sell them, a little bit more income in your pocket at the end of the day. Again, 2.25 points, or not even 1.5 points on the 30-day, 4 points on the 180-day. Not a ton, but hey, it's better than a discount at the end of the day. Let's see what's going on from an OI perspective. Let's see how things are shaping up out there. Remember, we said a few weeks ago, we saw March roll off the board, took a ton of paper with it. The quarterlies are really where the action is from an Bitcoin and indeed an ETH options perspective. Still looking to rebuild some of that OI. Going out to Deribit right now, there are 222,000 contracts open. On the call side, it's up about 12,000 from this time last week. And the puts, 115,000, up about 7,000. So we're still within that roughly 2-to-1 window that Deribit has hung out at for some time on the Bitcoin options front. No major changes there. In terms of the top positions, let's see. Maybe there's some shakeup there. The top 5 size positions in Bitcoin options on Deribit. Number 5, we have the 27,000 strike. That's got 14,200 contracts open. That is a newcomer to the top 5. So interesting. That's some new blood there. Always fun to see. Number 4, the 25,000 strike, 18,200 contracts open. That is back down about 1,300. It was up 1,300 the week before, down 1,300 this past week. So you give and you taketh away. And then it's actually close to a tie because we have the 32,000 strike pretty much tied for 4/3. Technically, it's about 100 different, 18,100 versus 18,200, but they're pretty much neck and neck. So let's just call it tie for 4-3 with the 32,000 strike as well, right around 18,100 contracts. That's up 2,000 though on the week. So pretty impressive resurgence there on the 32,000 strike. Then to number 2, we have the 40K strike. Looked pretty outlandish this past week, not as much. 18,800 contracts open there. That's actually up 1,800. Not exactly surprising. We surge past 30,000 for the first time in quite some time. Not exactly surprising. We see some new positioning opening up on the 40K strike. And of course, the big dog, still the close to at the money strike, the 30K strike, 21,400 contracts open. It's up about 4,400 contracts from this time last week. So not surprising that A, the 30,000 strike would continue to hold the top spot, and B, that it would be the biggest gainer on our OI change-up list this week. So intriguing stuff here. 30K strike seems like it's going to capture your imagination for quite some time. Let's see what else is capturing your imagination out there on the Bitcoin options front. How about our old friend Bitto? Coming into showtime, it was pretty much unched, about a 1750, and it's still hanging out there, maybe up about a tenth of a point, close to 1760 right now. We're pretty much unched on the week. In terms of volume, we have seen a little bit of a hit out there in the ADV on Bitto. It was closing in on triple digits. It was 90-odd thousand not too long ago. Back down a little bit, back down to 67,000, which is interesting given the fact that you expect maybe this surge over 30K would drive a little bit paper and related products out there. But the ADV coming off a little bit, down 22,000 over the past week, down to 67,000. Still a pretty active product. Not many products can do nearly 70,000 contracts a day, but still a wee bit less. And some of that reason is just, the last few sessions haven't exactly been bangers. Right now, we're looking at about 20,000 contracts on the tape. So hard to maintain an ADV of close to 100,000 if you're only putting up 20,000 by this time in the session. The vol, similar to what we saw out there in the Deribit options, it's at about a 56, down about 3 points from where it was this time last week. So no huge changes there. Let's see if we have any shakeups in the top 10 in a Bitto options perspective. Right now, we're hanging out. We were 5-5, so pretty much evenly split calls versus puts in our top 10 last week in Bitto. This week, it has swung a little bit in favor of the calls. Now it's 6 calls to 4 puts out there. Number 10, it costs you 14,300 contracts to break into the top 10 in Bitto this week. That gets you to the April 15 puts. Number 9, 17,800 of the June 5 puts. So those are interesting, a little bit vestigial at this point. Number 8, 18,400 of the April expiring on the 28th. So these are in the weeklies, 10 puts. Number 7, about 20,000 of the Jan 18 calls. Looking a little bit farther out on the 18 call strike. Interesting. Someone has them on for the tune of nearly 20,000. Number 6, about 25,000 of the Jan 65s. A little bit different strike there. Number 5, our final put in the top 10, 25,000 of the June 8 puts. Been talking about these for a while. These have been open for a while. An intriguing strike, not quite the 10 put strike. We'll get to that in a little bit. Spoilers. Number 4, we have 27,000 of the Jan 15 calls, now in the money calls. Number 3, 28,000, almost 29,000 of the Jan 25s. And number 2, we have 28, almost 29,000 of the Jan 30s as well. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say those are probably a vertical, the 25-30 vertical. And Jan, I should point out, by the way, Jan of 2025. So not even Jan of next year, Jan of 2025. Yeah. And I see that kind of stuff. I have to wonder. Let me see if I can find out when that was open. Looks like it had to be fairly recently to see some going up last Wednesday. And then more trickling. It looks like they've been pretty active for the better part of the last week. A couple of thousand a day going up on that strike. So they've managed to accrete a decent amount of that OI over the course of the past week. Let's look really quickly to see if it went up as a spread to Yeah, it went up as a spread, which is the only way this makes sense. Even still, 25-30 vertical going out to Jan of 2025. When I see that stuff, I don't love it. Any sort of vertical, if you're buying that, listeners, we could shoot up to 30 in BITO over the span of the next few months, and that spread really wouldn't do a heck of a lot for you. So it's all the way out to 2025, so there's no real delta to speak of. Not going to move much for you. You really need to wait quite some time for that spread to widen out for you. So I don't love it. I don't love it really on either way. If you're selling that and buying, I don't like it either way. So interesting. You like that, listeners? Jan 2025, 25-30 vertical in BITO. I'm curious. Maybe you have a different opinion. Hit me up. Let us know here on the network. And the number one size position yet again this week, listeners. Nothing's touching this. 91,000 of the April 10 puts out here. Those are more intriguing. You like drawing a line in the sand at those 10 puts, listeners. But intriguing, you like that 10 strike as a line in the sand strike? Would you like to sell a put there, maybe go out to May, listeners? Or do you prefer something else out there? And let's look really quickly, see if any. I think the Junes are pretty active. The Junes are going for about a dime right now. So the June 10 puts for a dime all the way out to June for only 10 cents. Not a heck of a lot of juice, but it is something. And if you don't mind picking up your BITO, roughly 7.5 points lower if you wanted to sell those. Could be interesting. Or, of course, the flip side of that, you want a cheap shot at some aggressive downside in BITO. That's only a dime. I'm not a huge fan of selling puts for a dime. Doesn't get me super excited, but as a level, I don't hate it. All right, let's keep on rolling. I'll see what's going on out there in the altcoin universe.
It's time to move beyond Bitcoin and find out what's moving the rest of the crypto marketplace. It's time to boldly venture into the altcoin universe.
All right, everybody, welcome to the altcoin universe, the portion of the show where we take a look at what's going on outside of the big dog, which is Bitcoin, except for right now when we talk about the top 10 from a market cap perspective out there. Kind of hard to dodge Bitcoin in that conversation, listeners. If we could, we would, obviously, but kind of challenging out there. Number 10 this week, listeners, it's Solana. Solana's had a nice move over the last week and change out there, back into a mid-20s range after we all know post FTX dropping below $10 back in January. Cost you about $9.6 billion to break into the top 10 today. That gets you to good old Solana. So a little bit higher. We were hanging out $7 to $8 billion not too long ago. So a little bit higher. Again, makes sense. Crypto has been up across the board for the most part, better part of the last few weeks. Number 9, Polygon, $10.7 billion worth of market cap. Number 8, it's Doge, having a firm grip out there on the number 8 spot. $12.7 billion worth of market cap. Number 7, Cardano, $15.2 billion. Number 6, XRP, $26.4 billion. Number 5, USD Coin, $31.5 billion. Number 4, it's BNB, $53 billion. Pretty much exactly. Numero trace here. It is Tether, almost $81 billion worth of market cap. Number 2, it's ETH, $248.6 billion worth of market cap. And the big dog, it's Bitcoin, $570.8 billion worth of market cap. Let's get on out now to number 2 in the market cap, number 1 in a lot of your hearts. It is ETH. Coming into the start of the show, back north of that 2,000 level, listeners, level again. A lot of you like to watch. It's been a very important psychological level week out there for the big two, really, Bitcoin and ETH. Bitcoin blowing past 30,000, ETH blowing back past 2,000 to the upside out there. Coming into the start of the show, we were pretty much at right around 2,084. End of our last show, 1,866, so up almost 218 handles, pretty much almost exactly on the week. In terms of highs, we got a little bit north of 2,000, about 2129, and the low came during our show day last week, listeners, 1848 on the dark side. So a fair amount of living out there in ETH over this past week, which is why the vol is remaining firm. It was a 59 on the show last week, 60 this week. Even still, we're not seeing ETH trade right now at that fairly decent vol premium to Bitcoin. So for those of you out there like a little bit of vol arbitrage, a little bit of vol spreading between Bitcoin and ETH, that tight spread could be intriguing, even if it is widening out a little bit out there this week. In terms of Skew, let's do the same thing. Let's take the same exercise and see how it works out here in ETH. Let's go to the 30-day Skew first, listeners. And last week we were slightly negative, about a negative 0.6, which is borderline flat. And this week, coming at the start of the show, is almost a positive 2, about a 1.8. So it swung pretty firmly in the positive direction. If we go a little bit farther out, listeners, in terms of the term structure, let's go out about 6 months, about 180 days here. See what the Skew is that far out. And like Bitcoin, it's a similar trajectory, a little bit more positive, a little bit more bullish, about a 3.25 point premium to the calls over the puts when we go that far out. Let's get into the OI. Let's see what's open for size on the options on Deribit. And the calls about 1.92 million. It's up about 160,000 from this time last week. And the puts about 848,000 open. That's up about 70,000. So we're still hanging out roughly 2.5 to 1 calls over puts out there from an ETH OI perspective. That's not as call heavy as it has been in the past, and certainly in some names like Solana back in the day when Solana options were trading hot and heavy. I got up to 4 to 1 calls over puts. So we're not quite there yet, but still pretty frothy from an overall call OI perspective. Let's get out to the top 5 positions, see what's open for size out here on ETH options this week. Number 5, we have the 1600 strike. It's got 145,000 contracts open. That's down a whopping 63,000 contracts from this time last week. It's a big swing out here. Number 4, we have the 2200 strike. It's got 193,500 contracts open. It's up about 37,000. So big moves here in the ETH OI this week. Number 3, the 2000 strike, 213,000 contracts opens up about 2,000. So that's probably the quietest of our top 5s this week in terms of net changes on the week. Number 2, the 1900 strike, 249,000. That's up 45,000 contracts from this time last week. So a lot of action on the 1900 strike this week. And then the big dog still this week, the 1800 strike, with exactly 250,000 contracts. So just barely managing to hold on to the top spot by the skin of its teeth. That is back down 4,900. It was up 4,900 contracts the week before, back down 4,900 this week. So net doing a whole lot of nothing over the last couple of weeks, but still enough to hold on to the top spot in ETH options out there. Since we're talking about ETH options, let's look really quickly. I neglected to do it in the Bitcoin breakdown, so maybe we'll take a quick glance over there at CME land, see if any paper was really lighting it up out there, and either the big Bitcoin options or the ETH options out there. It looks like last week on the Bitcoin options front actually had some decent action, about almost 2,000 contracts going up in those big 5x Bitcoin options. So it may not sound like a lot if we're talking about hundreds of thousands and millions of contracts and other products, but even BitO doing 60, 70, 80, 90,000 contracts in a day. Compared to those, it isn't much. But of course, compared to the early days of that product, when it was doing 20 contracts in a week, a couple of thousand, nothing to sneeze at out there. ETH, the big ETH option, same deal, nearly 500 on the tape last week. Again, it doesn't sound that impressive, but this was another one that was doing 2, 5, 10 contracts in a week when it first launched. So the big ETH options starting to grow a little bit out there as well. Let's jump down to the micro stuff, the more bite-sized contracts, see what's lighting it up out there for the rest of us out there who aren't large funds who want to sling 5x Bitcoin or 50x ETH out there. And in terms of the micro, let's start with the micro Bitcoin. It's always been kind of hit or miss. And looks like last week was a bit of a hit, 5,500 contracts on the tape. Again, these are micro size, so take those numbers with a bit of a grain of salt, but we've seen some weeks that they've only done a couple of hundred. So 5,500 looks like a little bit of action. Again, a psychologically important week. So we would hope these products would resonate in a week like last week, but you never know out there at the end of the day. And going out to micro ETH, this is another one that's had problems. Some weeks it can put up some numbers, then other weeks it kind of does nothing. And last week, even though we broke through 2,000, 11, almost 1,200 contracts. I mean, again, it's not nothing, but it's not the heights we've seen. We've seen well over 10,000 on some weeks out here in these micro ETH options. And for whatever reason, it's a very staccato product. It trades a ton, then it doesn't trade anything. I'm not sure. People have asked us. We've looked into it. We've talked to CME about it, why that is. There are many different theories about it, most of them centered around the margin pretty much, but intriguing stuff nonetheless. So kind of a hit or miss depending on where you're looking over there on the crypto derivatives on CME last week. Before we get to your questions, let's get to really quickly some of the rest of the movers and shakers in the altcoin universe this week. Like we mentioned, Solana, kind of a banger week out here. Just a lot of action across the board out here for all things Solana. Remember I mentioned not too long ago, it was below $10. That was, of course, in the post FTX debacle out there. But yeah, it's been quite the run out here over the better part of the last week. We were hanging out on our show last week, pretty much right or a little bit north of the 20 handle, about 2030 at the end of our show last week. And it started rallying almost right from there. By the end of that day, it was pretty much right into 21. And then the March kept moving. Coming into the start of today's show, about 24 3/4. So up about 4.5 handles on the week. So quite the resurgence here for Solana. I'm curious, folks, are you back in Solana? Have you maybe forgiven all of the issues that emerged post FTX? Or you maybe starting to think maybe that was overblown and this rally is starting to lure you back in? I'm curious. We took it off the show. We used to talk a lot about Solana options activity. They started to really dwindle. Then, of course, FTX happened, so we kind of just stopped talking about Solana options, quite frankly. But if this price action continues, there's certainly a lot more argument for using an option when a underlying is nearly $25 than below $10, that's for sure. So maybe this will spark some life back in the Solana options. And I'm curious. Are you back on the Solana train? Are you intrigued by Solana again? Are you trading the underlying or perhaps even the options? I'm curious. Hit us up. Let us know. If the answer is yes for a lot of you, then perhaps we need to investigate bringing it back onto the show and having really its own section again the way it did not too long ago until FTX just killed the whole thing. XRP, again, you know the deal. This one, 50.5 last week, about 51 cents this week. Not a huge evolution out there. Doge up a little over 0.5 cent on the week, so nice little run for Doge. Still hanging out number 8 on market caps, looking pretty good there. Litecoin, 92.60 last show, 98.85 this week, up about 6.25. Cardano, 38.8 cents last week, 43.8 cents this week's up about 5 cents on the week. Polkadot, 6.17 last week, 6.72 this week. So again, the crypto flight to quality in full effect here, listeners. And except for our old friend Shiba, still, unfortunately, no Shiba Lambos on the docket this week as we keep on rolling and answer your crypto questions.
You've got questions about crypto. Who doesn't? It's time to find out the answers to your crypto questions.
All right, everybody, welcome to your crypto questions. This week's question comes from John A. He wants to know, are there any ETH ETFs that you can recommend? Thanks. The short answer is no. No, John, there are no ETH ETFs approved for trading here in the U.S. A lot of people want them. I'm assuming you're looking for something like an ETHO, the equivalent of BitO, something that's approved here for U.S. trading and for our audience also has a sizable and liquid options community around it. Obviously, that does not exist yet. BitO, obviously there for the Bitcoin side. No real equivalent yet on the ETH side. People have attempted it. People are continuing to attempt it. I know the BitO folks would love to have something similar on ETH. It's just not quite ready for prime time yet, that market. And when I say that, it's because BitO are obviously listed off of the CME Bitcoin futures. And so what you need is that marketplace to really grow from a liquidity perspective before the regulators will be content to really approve something like this. They're not going to be worried that it's going to dramatically impact the market or the market isn't sizable enough to handle the demand from an ETF like this. At the end of the day, you're going to need to move a lot of futures in order to manage an ETF like this. And so the ETH futures, not quite there yet. They're growing. They're robust. They're better than they have been. And maybe a couple of weeks like last few, maybe we'll see more evolution out there. But it's not quite there yet from where the regulators want it to be before they can come in and approve something like BITO. I mean, there are alternatives if you want to trade ETH in a securities account. You can go the Grayscale route. There's, of course, the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. They also have the Grayscale ETH Trust. Obviously not an ETF. Obviously not optionable. And also trades at a sizable discount. It was somewhere around 50% the last I checked a few weeks ago on it. So that could be for you. It could not be for you. I get a little uncomfortable with those sizable discounts because then you're wondering what is going on? What is lurking behind this discount? Is that discount going to increase going forward, which would obviously be bad for holders of that? Or there's a chance it could vanish and it goes right back up and you have a nice little pop in your value. So that could be worth it for you at the end of the day. But for me, the lack of options, that discount, all these other issues around it, not exactly my first choice. So I'm holding out hope for some sort of etho. Sounds like you are as well, John. And as soon as we see one listed, and as soon as there are options available, you'll be the first to know. You'll hear about it here on this show. All right, that is going to do it for us here on the Crypto Rundown this week. I want to thank all of you out there for your time to listen, to rate, and review. Remember, the world of crypto derivatives, always growing, always evolving, always confusing. So if you like what you hear, do head out to your platform of choice, leave some stars, help new folks continue to discover the content. These are, after all, very confusing times for everybody. And certainly when it comes to the world of crypto derivatives, there aren't really many people out there talking about this stuff. So appreciate all of you taking the time to listen, to rate and review. And of course, we're checking out our friends over there at Amber Data, amberdata.io, the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires. That is going to do it for us on the network today. Back again tomorrow with the advisor's option. Going to break down the month, the craziness that's going on out there from a asset manager and advisor's perspective. Tell them what they should be looking for, maybe a little bit of education, some analysis, all sorts of fun for the advisor's option. Then back again on Wednesday for all of you interested in learning about options. We have, of course, a double dose of options bootcamp coming at you. Myself, Mr. Passarelli, will be holding court, answering options questions, and of course, doing a deep dive on some options educational topics. You're getting 2 this week, so that's a bonus for our pro listeners. If you're listening live, you get 2 of them instantaneously in your ear holes. And after that, immediately after that, you'll get a great pro Q&A with our buddy, Mr. Overby, a.k.a. the options guy himself. So get your questions in now for that. Should be a great time. Thursday, of course, This Week in Futures Options. If you liked our little bit of a rundown we did here on the show today about the CME crypto derivatives, we do a deeper dive on that show. Of course, we have reports you folks can check out on those for yourselves in between episodes of this show. Just go to cmegroup.com/TWIFO, TWIFO. That stands for This Week in Futures Options. Go to that drop down and then slide down to cryptocurrencies. You can see all that data I was just talking about over there completely for free every week over there. So if you want to stay abreast of the latest going on in the world of listed crypto derivatives, that's the place for you to go. Check out that show, then head on over to cmegroup.com/TWIFO. See the latest for yourselves. And then back again on Friday for volatility views. And of course, for all of our pro listeners after that for options oddities. Then back again next Monday, another episode of the Crypto Rundown. Stay safe out there.
The Crypto Rundown is brought to you by Amber Data. If you're entering the digital asset class, you'll need access to granular on-chain and market data from multiple venues to power research, trading, risk management, and compliance. Amber Data delivers comprehensive data and insights into blockchain networks, crypto markets, and decentralized finance, empowering financial institutions to apply traditional finance methods to digital assets. Amber Data eliminates the infrastructure setup, integration challenges, and maintenance headaches to access digital asset data, reducing cost and time to market to enter the digital asset class. Learn more and download their digital asset data guide at www.amberdata.io. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.